Hello, this is a new episode of Tempel Talk and I have a special guest, George from Ideon. George, can you tell a little bit about yourself, where you're coming from?
I'm George Ligerakis, the founder of Ideon Audio from Greece. It's a company that specializes in designing and manufacturing digital audio products.
Okay.
For the reproduction of digital playback.
Okay, can you tell a little bit how you became involved into the music and why you decided to start building digital?
Okay, it's a cliche, I'm a music lover.
Yeah.
From my very early stages in life, listening to music since I was a kid. I've grown up in a house with 3 pianos. I had my first system from my mother in my probably around 10 years old. It was a complete system with separate components. Of course, a turntable at that period and a cassette recorder. So I started experimenting all this, listening to the music collection that my mother had. Then I started my own collection. Today I have a very big collection of music. Music is a big part of my everyday
it's in your
life.
veins.
Yes, it is. Most of the time, while I'm doing something, I'm also listening to music. Or late night, you see, the most relaxing moments before you go to bed is, low lights, low volume, the music you like. Okay, so after some years, a lot of years of experimenting in trying mixing and matching, components as most of the audiophiles do, I was about to replace my DAC, the converter I had at that moment. It was a very expensive, high-end device.
And in which periods are we talking about?
I'm talking about 2015, 2016, somewhere there. And I was evaluating products from the market. Most of them were very, very expensive, as they are today too. A lot of the high-end gear. At that period, I was introduced to a designer who were designing DACs since the 90s, experimenting on all different topologies. And I had the chance to evaluate his latest design. It was a little board that we put our own power supplies. And it was fantastic. It was even better than what I had so far. And we worked together to further improving it and matching it to our system. It was a revelation for me because it was a very cheap compared to the standards of the market device, which actually I replaced my DAC with this one. And after a while, we said, why not introducing this to more people to see how it goes, to share it with music lovers that couldn't maybe afford a more expensive design. Our first idea was to create something very affordable, to bring the high-end music reproduction to more people.
Yeah.
And it was so good that we decided to start a company in parallel with our other jobs at that time. That was 2016, so we are now almost 9 years later, and now it's a full-time job for us. We are expanding all around the world with our products.
Yeah, and I can understand why. So we talked a little bit with each other. Can you explain a little bit to the audience what the difference is when you started and now? So in the 9-year period, what has changed in the production of DA converters, etc.?
Well, we have a lot of R&D that has been going on in the DAC chips, in other components also. A lot of our own R&D in software, where we try to optimize the best way we can at any point of a DAC chip is a very complex component. It has a lot of factors that you can influence. Most of the companies take it as it is with default settings and build around it a DAC. We don't do that. We are experimenting every day on how to improve it. So our own experience has changed a lot, and a lot of developments in the chips and the firmware, and most of all, new developments in the USB input part. I would say until maybe 3 or 4 years ago, there was only 1 or 2 chips for the USB input in the market. I don't want to name them, but most of the people know. The one was not supporting DSD, the other was supporting DSD. We were using both. We decided initially to go with the one that didn't support DSD because it sounds better. But after that, some new products came in the market, and now we can influence a lot the most important part in the digital chain, which is the USB input of the DAC.
Yeah, because that is interesting. I read some articles about you and also some interviews, and then you are telling USB is the best connection for audio. There are companies, also high-end companies, who are saying no, you have to use existing like ASABU or other digital component connections. So that's like water and fire, so differently approach. So can you explain the viewer why you believe this is the right approach?
Okay, in the traditional, let's say, methods, there are limitations in the bandwidth, in the lengths, in the way a cable or a connection is influenced by noise and vibrations and external electromagnetic influences. While at the same time, when we are taking data from a computer, it's zeros and ones. And the USB connection is made for this. It's not the SPDIF is not made for this. SPDIF is made for other kind of applications. While to transfer ones and zero from a computer, the USB is the right way to do it. But I believe that most companies have not spent the required amount of investment and time to improve this, or they don't know how to do it, so they go to the other direction. The other direction has also, even if some of those implementations are good, they will certainly have a limitation in the future in supporting high definition formats, first of all. Now, on the USB part of the transfer, as we are talking about digital components here, computers, networks, clocks, all these devices, these components produce a lot of electrical and digital noise.
Yep.
The only way to make USB perfect is to get rid of all this noise and optimize it fully in order to supply the DAC with the most pure signal. And this is what we do. When you do this right, there is no better connection than the USB. And I believe this will be also the future, and a lot of companies will understand and change route on what they do. Because I've seen lately, for example, companies going back 2 decades back, creating external sound cards, taking the USB signal, and then convert it to SPDIF through a sound card. This is old school for us. I mean, we have decided to follow this path, and I believe that listening and comparing will persuade anyone that this is the way to go.
Well, for now I can fully agree with you, because I have the components here and we have tested it, and we can say it sounds very quiet. You don't hear any noise, almost no noise, depending to which component you are listening. So yes, it's very quiet, but you're also designing streamers. And I know there are also other companies who design streamers, and they are converters, and they fully believe in ASABU because they say, well, it's used in the pro audio world, it's the best connection, or well, So what will you say to them, to the people who are saying that is the best connection? Are they wrong, or do they don't understand how you can improve USB connection with streamers?
I think it's the second. And I had an incident in Singapore, where a very well-known audio manufacturer has a DAC, a very expensive DAC, a converter which has also USB input and other digital inputs, like the ones you said, like SPD for ICE-EBU. And they were using, in Asia, they believe a lot in the more traditional connections. When we gave them our streamer and reclocker, then they understood themselves that they have actually built a very good USB connection. Maybe they didn't know how good it is, but they discovered that it is much, much better than the one they were using and promoting themselves when they put our own reclocker into the chain, because they now have a very pure signal and they can exploit the USB connection. So what we are saying is that when the signal enters the DAC, we are doing a lot of work there with our own firmware. We influence a lot how to eliminate and minimize noises, how to properly reclock, so to feed through USB the most accurate, purified, the most well-conditioned signal to the DAC.
Yeah. So we can say, in your belief, in the next future, there will be no ASEBU and in really good DA converters and streamers.
This is my belief, yes. That's why we invest only in USB. And some companies are coming up with strains, their own designs, their own connections. Some of those work, but they are only made only for their brand.
Yeah.
Whatever we do, I have to say this, works with any brand regardless of price and make.
Yeah. Well,
we don't design things to work only with our stuff.
No, and in that part I can fully agree. As you know, we do also Daniel heads, and we use your streamer and clocker on the Daniel heads, and it worked perfectly and gives a perfect sound reproducing impression. It's very nice. Okay, so what I also understand is that you do a lot of programming on existing DAC chips, so you can influence almost everything what happens in a DAC. But there's also something happening in your product line. You sell a DA converter starting from, let's say, about 3,000 euros, and we have here a DA converter who is about almost 44,000 euros, so it's quite a lot of money. So what is the differences? Can you explain to the viewer why this marvelous machine costs that much?
Yeah. Okay. A comment on the DAC chips. I believe that the companies that produce the DAC chips, there are very few, they spend millions of dollars and euros in R&D. This money cannot be invested by any audio manufacturer. So it's natural for us to take advantage of this huge R&D. But it's not the DAC chip by itself.
No.
It's a whole factory of things around that to make it sound as it should. Okay. So when we started with the Ayazi, the affordable design, we started with a no compromise in terms of the quality of the components used inside design. So for the price, if you open it, you see that everything in there is top-notch, best of breed in electronics today. After evaluating whatever is in the market, because our designer has 30 years of experience and he's a living encyclopedia of all the digital components that are out there. we build our strategy and our design philosophy in this first topology, and we started thinking of how to improve it at an extreme level. And from the Ayasi, we went to the absolute DAC. Why the absolute has this price tag? First of all, it has more than 6 years of R&D in the software. It has almost 4,000 lines of code written for the DAC chip. And this is a significant investment that we continuously do. The same applies for the USB input board. We are using the most expensive clocks in the market. We have 3 of them in the design. We are using a solid billet of aluminum, which is very expensive, that we mill with CNC. Mm-hmm. This is a big investment because you know that aluminum and the processing of it is very expensive. But now let's go into the components themselves. As I told you, the clocks are very, very expensive. We're talking about clocks that cost like more than 100 euros each. And in a manufacturing world, this is a very high cost. I have seen DACs with clocks that cost less than €0.50, okay? But it's the whole design. For example, we have 2 transformers, hand-wired, with separate wirings, built to our specs. And those are handmade to our specs. We have 17 linear power supplies of ultra-low noise. This is a very heavy cost. The absolute DAC has a topology of power supplies that can drive very quietly a power amp. So it's a very, very high-end conceptual design. We are using the most expensive regulators in the market. We have more than 150 of the top capacitors, silk capacitors ever made that are now obsolete, and we were forced to buy the whole stock 2 years ago. And then we have our own, let's say, patented rectification topology, which is based on FETs with no diodes. This is a separate board, also an expensive thing to make. The whole design is modular, meaning that all this design is based in different boards. So it's very easy to replace something and support the servicing of the device later. And then we go to the analog stage, which is also for, let's say, symmetrical design, fully balanced, with no capacitors at the signal path, very expensive components there too. So if someone opens the product and see what is inside, will understand.
They will see audio porn.
Yes, and they can compare it with other similarly priced devices to see what is in there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so we have a beautiful deck, but we have also beautiful streamers. You have made beautiful streamers. What's the philosophy or your magic in that? Because it has their own signature. You can hear, if you buy the EOS and you buy the standard, the absolute, then you hear family, but of course this is more advanced. Yeah. But what is your magic in that?
In the DACs, first of all, what we learned from the absolute is trickled down to the Ion, the EOS. So the sound signature, which is natural sound with natural dynamics, and this is what music should be about, nothing else. If you have the dynamics and the naturalness, then you have the sound stage, you have the depth, you have the 3-dimensional, and you have the completely black background, which is a result of the power supplies that we use. We follow the same philosophy in the streamers. We have only 2 streamers. What we say, we cannot make a very good streamer that can be cheap too. It's impossible with our philosophy. In the streamer world, we have designed right from the start a high-end audio device, not a high-end computer that plays music. We go to every little point of the circuit where we can influence and bypass any point that creates noise. And this is very hard to do in a CPU because nobody makes CPUs. You have to buy the CPU. It's impossible for an audio manufacturer, although some claim that they do their own CPU, to make a CPU. This is impossible. So we have to modify the CPU with capacitors and some other techniques we are using to eliminate as much as possible noise that is created in the circuit. We have 4 different linear power supplies, ultra low noise, for every different voltage point on the circuit. And then we have also a big capacitor bank, again, transformers that are hand-wired, handmade to our specs. And of course, we have selected the Linux kernel, which is live core, meaning it's so optimized for audio. It's only the last 2 versions of the kernels out there, and from what I know, we are the only ones that are using this so far. That means that every song is played with the whole streamer being concentrated with all its processes only for the playback of one song without any other interference. Now this, and also we are deploying reclocking in the output of the streamer, which when combined with reclocking in the DAC, then you go from good sound to amazing sound. And we follow exactly the same philosophy to the EOS, which is same software, same clocks. I have to say that for the DACs, we use exactly the same clocks from the basic one, the entry level, to the absolute. We don't compromise on that. We don't compromise in general in the most important parts and components of our designs. So the EOS is a cut-down version of the absolute, same philosophy, not so expensive components, apart from the software and some regulators and clocks. The rest of the components and the power supplies are not of the level of the absolute. And also the price is half. Yeah. So we say that the EOS can satisfy anyone up to a very high standard level in any system, while the absolute is for the person that wants the best.
We talked earlier about reclocking. And you say reclocking is very important. And can you tell me a little bit, because you have a USB purifier, but you have also something for LAN, internet connection. Can you tell,
Yeah. We have three different products that improve the data transfer or the music transfer. Yeah. Okay. We believe a lot in reclocking because when you transfer data, and the data is music, and it's not data to be printed in a printer, you cannot correct anything because it's a continuous flow of information, of music information. While when you send, for example, a bank transaction or a printing order to a printer, the device sends back information to the computer that, okay, I have all the data, I close the transaction and move on. With music, you cannot do that because you are going to cut the flow of music. So, if you don't condition the signal, you will have losses in your ears. Meaning other frequencies, less resolution, more noise, a more, let's say, dull picture of the music. So reclocking comes to correct all this and condition the signal. What we do is actually we buffer the data in the reclocker. We provide best timing with the most expensive clocks, pure current, and we regenerate the signal before feeding it to the DAC. So all these problems that I mentioned before do not exist when the signal enters the DAC, when it is again reclocked by the DAC reclocker. So this is the right way to go in digital audio for me. Without reclocking it's a different world.
So what you are saying is that even you reclock the signal with the time, the clock inside the DAC is as important as well.
It is.
Yeah.
But
and can you tell me why?
Because maybe the external clock is more important.
Okay.
Because the internal clock anyway has to happen in any DAC.
Yeah.
In any DAC, even in our mobile phones.
Yeah, but can you explain the audience, because not everyone has a degree in audio, digital audio.
No, but it's very simple. When you feed the DAC clock with a purified signal, meaning that it has no jitter, it has no noises, it has no electrical noises, no digital noises, the DAC chip and the clock have a much simpler work to do, so they consume less power, meaning they create less noise. It's an efficient way to reproduce music.
Okay.
It's simple.
Yeah.
I say it in a simplified way, of course. Yeah. It also depends a lot in the software and the algorithm, of course, of the DAC chip.
So the clocks, the time you sell, the clocks who are inside, are they designed by Ideon?
Yes. With our own firmware, where again we influence every little factor that can bring better results.
And that you see from the most expensive to the most of the cheapest model, it's all designed by Ideon itself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Completely in-house, everything.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to hear. And you also, I just tested it for a few days, but can you explain a little bit, because that was for me mind-blowing, is you call it the alpha wave LAN isolator?
We have two other products. So this is a new series, we call it Innovator. We created this series and when we can come up with something innovative to improve the audio playback, we will put it in this series. There are two products there. The Sigma Wave, this is a USB isolator, and I have to say why it is different from the USB reclocker. Yeah. The USB reclocker does the work for all the digital noises. The USB isolator, called Sigma Wave, does the same job for all the electrical noises. All the dirt from all the electrical noises and all the things that are generated in the circuit that will be fed to the DAC go to the ground. This device clears, isolates, gets rid of all the noise from input to output, feeding the DAC with a completely electrical noise-free signal. If combined with the USB reclocker, then the result is amazing. So, to sum up, USB reclocker, it's the digital isolation. The USB isolator is the electrical isolation. Now, the alpha wave is simply, we call it LAN optimizer to USB, because it's an external LAN card that replaces the internal card, LAN card of the streamer. Most of the streamers have problems in the LAN connection because all the connectors are very cheap and they produce noise themselves, and most of the internal cards cost less than €3. So we created a whole new high-end device only for this job. We bypass completely the LAN processing part of the streamer, and we do that externally with ultra-low noise linear power supplies, reclocking a clean power. So we receive the signal from the network. It's input in the alpha wave through Ethernet cable. The whole optimization is done inside this device, and then we feed the streamer with USB, not with LAN cable anymore, so we forget all the problems that the network has with noises and interference and all these problems that I mentioned. This way, again, the streamer gets a completely purified signal. This is extremely important for people that are streaming from streaming services.
Yeah. Well, for me it was mind-blowing because I can say I use a very good network, how do you call it, switch, high-end, costs also a lot of money, but it isn't comparing to what I heard about the isolator.
It's a very efficient way to use the LAN signal for your streamer without having the LAN problems.
Yeah, I would say one of the best I think you can buy for your streamer.
These two devices, we introduced them after the Munich show in June.
Yeah.
And from July until today, everything is sold out. We sold hundreds of them because they go horizontally to any system, to any audio system.
It's not cheap, but I think it's the cheapest improvement you can do in a high-end system.
You cannot make it cheap because the components used inside are very expensive.
If you compare what you
what
result
you're getting,
is
it's cost effective. Yes.
Yeah. So I would say I'm looking forward to see the future of Ideon because it's very promising. I think it's shocking. Thank you for your time. And
thanks for the invitation.
Yeah,
it was
you're
a pleasure.
welcome. And now we will educate some customers of ours.
The fun will begin now.
Yeah, they will. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thanks.
And see you next time, George.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.